This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
I reckon you've probably got a fairly good idea what my answer for this is, either from the title or from the fact that you've seen me do stuff before. But I'll get to why I'm making this video in a second. But I did put up an Instagram kind of question asking you guys, some of you guys, if you're not on Instagram, then maybe not you specifically. I put out the twat signal, me being the twat, not you. Sorry. Asking what the best pedal of all time was. I got a couple of answers from my mates and also a couple of answers from you guys on Instagram. So we had a couple of people saying a tuner, which, fair play. It does actually make a huge difference being like actually in tune versus not. Obviously, One Terraform was one of the suggestions. Zen Drive from Jimmy Vintage, Protein. So I think that's the brown, right? From Kevin suggests that one. I had a suggestion, the Korg Miku, from actually 3 people, showing that parallel thought is a thing. So shout out to you guys. Pedals are very expensive in our country, said Saeed. Another suggestion for the brown Protein. Prima Diandera said the one you haven't bought yet, which is kind of prescient. Matt Fissy said TS808. And Matthew Darcy said TS9. And that's kind of... Tubescreamer was a suggestion that I had from one of my buds as well, and I thought, yeah, Tubescreamer, I think, like, there's a lot of people who really hate them for some reason, so I think, like, Tom Bukovac is one, Rhett Scholl is another. I had Mehmet here, he's saying Looper, which I think is actually a great shout for being incredibly creative. Eddie here with a big shout out to the Kemper foot switch, which actually I think the Kemper is super underrated for effects. Swatch Line Art, said, I have a Meris Autobit Junior Bit Crusher sequencer. It's a very fine pedal. Fun pedal, fine, both. Another shout out two shout outs for the Strymon El Capistan. I actually tried all of those, really cool. Kiara says Clon. Fuzzface here. Derek says Boss GT100. Please do a video on that. I do have a Boss GT1, which I think would be the same models, right? John Plays the Guitar gave me 2 answers. One was the Joyo American Sound. Someone else said Pod Express, lol. What else have we got? Deep Jim Pack said Paul Walker's Accelerator, which is a shame. Please leave in the comments below if you want to help engagement along or something like that, or just get involved in the conversation in general. Oh, Boss Dimension C, which I really want to try. Miguel suggests that one. Strymon Deco as well has come in. Memory Man, great delay. And Green Russian Big Muff. That's basically most of the answers that I've got here, I think. Fuzz Circuit, Paul Walker's, a BB preamp, yeah, which I think is Tubescreamer based. So I think that's all of the answers that I got. A late suggestion from Jason Wade, who, had a few questions for me first, but came out with the dual list because essentially that's a blues breaker and a Tubescreamer in one, and I think the idea of a dual overdrive, we had some other folks say about the Brown Protein, which I think is a Nobels and a blues breaker, so a dual overdrive kind of circuit kind of makes sense, right? I asked my buddy David Beebe, he said Strymon Timeline. I asked Igor, who works for Line 6, he actually said Tuner or Tubescreamer. I had to press him on other answers. My buddy Jake suggested the Vemiram TSV808, which is typically expensive for Jake. Now, I have a few answers for this. My first thought, and the reason that I'm making this video, is that I saw that Eric Klein had left a comment on his Rampage the other day. So Eric Klein is the Helix Product Designer. Used to work for Digitech as well, who I think have made some really important pedals in the past as well, and are still making some great pedals, obviously. Yeah, every company who's tried to copy HX Stomp hasn't yet figured out why so many people love it, nor why quite a few have said it's the best pedal ever made. And I think I'm probably one of these people. And to challenge that, I kind of thought about, well, what else would I put up there? Or could I say that it's maybe best pedal ever made ahead of the HX Stomp as a Line 6 fanboy? So the first thing that came to mind was actually a pedal that I think is actually iconic, the DL4, and this came to mind because Philip Sayce just had one break on him, and this to me is one of the most ubiquitous kind of delay pedals that I've ever really seen or noticed, that just is on so many people's boards. And this particular iteration of Line 6 pedals in general, for me what's cool about this delay is that I think was the first time as well that a looper was kind of integrated as well. And not only that, but I think you can pretty much trace the timeline, the Strymon timeline, which I think is another legendary pedal that deserves to be on this best pedals list, probably for me and for David Beebe. Basically, that is a souped up DL4 in a lot of ways, right? They made like the DL4 a few years later, as in people left Line 6, created Strymon, and created a pedal that is essentially very similar in concept and in functionality to the DL4. Yeah, I think people are still using these out there. Let me know if you are one of those people. But I think that belongs on the list, particularly as well, given that it is a modelling delay pedal, for it to have been so widely kind of accepted and that sort of thing, I think is pretty cool. So yeah, the Strymon timeline as well, because I think that does kind of take some of the great features of the DL4 and even some extra stuff like the ice stuff. For me, I think that delay was incredible, as well as, yeah, kind of more smeared kind of delay tones and stuff like that. And the Strymon timeline you see still on loads and loads and loads of pros boards. Let me know if you're using one still. The other kind of thought that I had was maybe around something like the Boss DS1 or the Tubescreamer, but then I thought, well, those are also quite polarizing pedals, so I don't know if that would make those fit into the list. That's like the best pedal ever, but let me know if you think there is a drive pedal that deserves to be in there, like a drive pedal that more or less most guitarists agree on. I don't know if there could be one. Maybe they don't. Maybe there doesn't ever appear to be something that is a drive pedal that every guitarist gets on with. I've not encountered one yet. The Eventide H9, I don't have an H9. I do have the H90 that they sent me. I think the H9 belongs on the list of the best pedals ever, specifically because Eventide are like a legendary company dealing with racks, and those algorithms that ended up on these pedals had been in our conscience and in our music for, decades prior to them coming out on the pedal format. There's real kind of high sheen quality to them, not Charlie. And yeah, the only downside I think with the H9 was that it's kind of one algorithm at a time, which I guess compared to the DL4, that's absolutely fine, right? That's running one algorithm at a time. Most effects pedals are running one effect at a time. But what we're going to come to later kind of can do more than that. You see quite a lot of pros boards with 2 H9s on there, and I thought that was kind of definitely worth shouting out, because the Eventide company themselves, legends, and legendary gear. The H90, I think, for me, until there's an editor with Android, loses a few points for ease of use. It's not super easy to use, but I've got a couple of presets that I put together on this, which I do really like. For me, the real answer is the thing that I use pretty much every day, and that I get endless it's very obviously the HX Stomp for me, because not only does this have the DL4 algorithms in here, it also, I think, is unique in that it's the pedal that you could have bought or been sent by Line 6 in 2018, as I was initially, that has literally over the years received real meaningful updates and literally improved as a pedal. They changed the cab modeling engine, they changed the actual amp modeling engine as well. Prior to that, they've added loads and loads and loads of new effects. The reverbs in here now are really, really, really high quality stuff. Norm, who has done some of the more recent Dynamic series, used to work at Lexicon and Digitech. The guys that do the pitch effects in here came from Digitech. And so, like the DNA somewhat of the folks that made the Digitech Drop, the Digitech Whammy DT, that sort of stuff, worked on the algorithms that would create the poly pitch, poly capo stuff, which is in the HX Stomp. The amp modeling in here, I think when you see blind A/B tests done by the people that do those really well, the HX Stomp is often included in those, like Leon Todd's, for example, with the JCM 800s recently, and it stands out really well, even with things like the Quad Cortex and the Axe and the Tonemaster Pro, all of these really expensive pieces of kit, and you've got basically every single thing that is in the full flagship Helix in the HX Stomp. Yes, it's a more limited kind of package in terms of half a DSP, chip, or half of the DSP that is in the Helix, which has 2 chips. This just has the 1. So you can't do the kind of full creative flagship Helix stuff, but you can do loads of really good stuff in it. Super flexible in terms of foot switching as well, and can really do a lot of things really well. I've, in a lot of ways, ended up kind of replacing many of my pieces of kit just with the HX Stomp, just running it as a full kind of signal chain, not having to worry about anything else. It is partly the reason that I don't have many pedals anymore at all. And yeah, so this is it. This is my favorite kind of delay machine as well. For a while, I kind of wondered, you know, do I have a delay pedal out there that kind of has my sound in it? And it's the dual delay within here is kind of what I'm most happy with, for whatever reason. So that for me, the HX Stomp has meaningfully got better over time. Is pretty reasonably priced in the UK, about £500. When they first came out, I think they were about £400, so were really reasonably priced then. The major downside for me with the HX Stomp, if there is one, actually there's two, is that to power these things is a little bit tricky. Like the wall warts that comes with them are not super reliable. And the other thing it actually is that this digital encoder on the top is the thing that is been for me prone to sort of failure. I've got a couple where it kind of skips a few steps, so that's one area of weakness. And the power supply for me, I think, and the power requirements, I think, are another little area of weakness. But other than that, I think for me, I think it would be fair to say that I think this probably is the best pedal ever in terms of value for money, variety of tones, you know, having other legendary kind of stuff in it. You know, all of this series is in here within the legacy effects, as well as all the other kind of great Line 6 stuff across the years. Really up-to-date amp modeling. A great piece of kit. I'd love to know though some of your thoughts about what your favourite pedals of all time are, the best pedals that you've ever bought. If you've got some suggestions, please do feel free to jump into the comments if you agree with any of these, or maybe you think multi-effects in general should be banned from this particular conversation. I'd love to know your thoughts, and thank you for stopping by. I was using in the intro there the 80s preset for Stomp, so I think it's like called 80s Stomp, and then I was using Chase Bliss Vox Stow for the very last part, which is that kind of like thing that you just heard me playing there with the kind of reverse Chase Blissy type stuff. That's in the Gumroad folder if you want to check it out. But yeah, I love the HX Stomp. I think is a great piece of kit. Let's see if there's any updates to come.